I started therapy for the first time because I had a mental exhaustion that sleep could not fix. I'm not talking physically tired, I'm talking about the emotional tired where not even sleep, not even just a 40-day rest period could solve it. It's that kind of tiredness where you're constantly monitoring people, trying to analyze conversations, trying to analyze yourself to make yourself feel better, having all these goals and just still feeling tired as I don't know what. And honestly, I don't feel like enough black people openly talk about this. Hold on, there's this lamp over there crooked. Hold on one second. Okay. Anyways, a lot of black people grow up learning survival instead of emotional regulation. Children from a young age are taught how to endure stress, how to endure emotional pain, heartbreak, racism, prejudiceness, if that's even a word. But you get the point. They're taught this before they're even able to be taught how to do it emotionally safe. And unfortunately, a lot of black households, which I think in some cases is unintentional, teach emotional suppression because survival mattered more than emotional expression. And I don't think that's merely anybody's fault. But I do think there are a lot of psychological consequences that come with it. And honestly, as I'm gearing up to start this therapy, it's kind of forced me to confront these thoughts and these ideas that I've always had. But before getting into that though, I feel like I should introduce myself. My name is Paul Owens, creatively known as MPO, and I am the founder of the Purple Empire. The Purple Empire is essentially my creative world, a space centered around music, the psychology of things, overstimulation, loneliness, human behavior, connection, and honestly trying to understand why people do the things they do daily. And honestly trying to understand what modern life is doing to people emotionally. Because these are some of the things that I have struggled with for years. And therapy helped me realize something very uncomfortable. A lot of emotional behaviors that I thought were just natural to me were honestly just survival mechanisms I taught way before I even knew how to say the word emotions, which I think becomes a very vital conversation point when talking about black culture and emotional suppression. And by the way, there's a bird like screaming out my window right now. That is so cool. Like, I think black people are emotionally exhausted from years of normalization by the society that we unfortunately live in. And that is the emotional suppression crisis I really want to discuss in this video today. One of the most uncomfortable conversations regarding in the black community is about emotional safety, regulation, and the suppression of emotion. Many black children grow up around yelling. They grow up around in unpredictable environments, growing up around harsh discipline, humiliation, religious fear, physical punishment, you name it. Belts, extension cords, hangers, wooden spoons, they have all become normal ways, normal forms of discipline inside black households. Children could be screamed at, they could be threatened at, embarrassed, or even physically punished, and then expected to act normal emotionally just a couple of minutes later. Do black families know that these ideas shape the nervous system? When a child is constantly trying to predict mood changes, conflicts, the brain adapts by becoming hypervigilant. The child begins to study the tone, facial expressions, the footsteps, and the emotional shifts of safety. Over time, many black children unfortunately become emotional detectives, overthinking, anxiety, difficulty trusting people, emotional numbness, fear of vulnerability. Many people don't realize that their overthinking has a direct link to survival conditioning. Because when the environment becomes unpredictable and is filled with chaos, calmness feels unnatural. It doesn't feel right. And unfortunately, religion plays this massive role in it, and religion's supposed to do the complete opposite of what it's causing. You know, faith has been historically one of the most thought out, one of the most powerful things in black communities. Churches gave black people hope, identity, structure, community, and in some cases, emotional endurance during the darkest time of our people's history. But however, religion has become one of the biggest fronts of intentionally causing emotional suppression. Because many, and I'm sure the black children out there can relate to this, just pray about it. Give it to God. Stop worrying. You're not doing faith long enough. And while I truly believe faith can help people emotionally and assist them, it's not always solved through just a spiritual instruction. Sometimes people just need the emotional language, the emotional safety, and the emotional understanding. And can you imagine the child that is black and gay trying to navigate the psychological consequences of trying to navigate that, trying to grow up, trying to understand sexuality, trying to understand the environments thereof? Just knowing that emotions are no longer emotions. They always become moral questions, identity questions, family questions, spiritual questions, social questions, all at once. And then they begin to start self-monitoring themselves like crazy. And I had to talk about this with my therapist, because when you think about all the black children that's going through this, and I'm so happy that I have therapy, because it's been one of the first spaces where I felt like I was allowed to speak honestly without immediately feeling judged, corrected, or just spiritually analyzed. And honestly, that experience alone just goes to show how emotionally deprived people are nowadays. I think another important part in black culture is humor. I think black humor is one of the most psychologically impressive coping mechanisms in the world. Black communities have historically used comedy to survive racism, grief, poverty, discrimination, trauma, you name it. However, humor is just emotional camouflage. Many black people have become experts at making people laugh whilst they're going through the darkest times of their life. People can joke about their depression, trauma. People can joke about their emotional neglect. But to be honest, that humor is just emotional CPR. As long as everybody's laughing, nobody has to acknowledge the emotional pain that they're truly going through, especially among black men. Black masculinity honors emotional suppression more than it honors emotional honesty. Many black men from a young age are taught that you have to be strong, composed, respected, masculine, productive, or emotionally controlled. However, emotional control and emotional health are just simply not the same thing. Many black men carry loneliness, body insecurity, religious shame, fear of vulnerability, abandonment, while still trying to have this appearance of confidence. Do you understand the amount of emotional strain that causes on somebody? Many black people perform emotional stability, then getting the opportunity to experience emotional safety. As a result, emotional vulnerability becomes threatening rather than healing. Therapy tends to become dangerous because it promotes honesty, which by itself already feels dangerous within the community. But the key about this is that the emotional suppression that black people face on a day-to-day basis, especially in black households, did not appear randomly. It has historical roots, very historical roots. For generations, black people were denied. For generations, black folks weren't just denied emotional safety, they were denied the right to just be human. During slavery, emotional vulnerability literally became dangerous. Black people lived under circumstances where families were separated, violence was normalized, bodies were controlled, and their emotional suffering had to be held in simply just to survive another day. You couldn't emotionally collapse once your friend got sold away to some white master. You couldn't psychologically break down every single time there was violence happening within your circle. You could not safely express the fear that you had towards the people that were beating you and hurting you. Emotional suppression became survival technology. Even after slavery ended, black people had to face enormous barriers to get mental health care. And I'm sure you can only imagine the segregation that black folks had to endure just to get the basic treatments that me and you experience today. Countless mental health institutions mistreated black folks, overdiagnosing black people with the most severe cases, the most criminalized emotional distress, rather than human pain. Even psychology itself was built around white social norms, viewing black emotional expression through stereotypes like aggression, instability, and so much more. And honestly, if all these generations was going through all these issues like medical discrimination, and honestly, why would black people trust therapy automatically? Oh my gosh, this ceiling fan is getting on my nerves. I gotta cut this off. Anyways, and honestly, I'm beginning this journey myself. I recently started therapy for the first time in my life. So I generally do not know exactly where this experience will take me, but I do know something changed the moment I walked into the office. For the first time ever, I slowed down and heard myself honestly. I didn't have the right to perform. I didn't have the right to overanalyze. I was just there to hear myself, to talk, to discuss the things that I've been going through. And to be honest, that was really uncomfortable because I had realized for years I intellectually tried to figure out my emotions instead of actually just letting them be processed. I could explain my emotions philosophically, musically, all the above, but sitting inside my emotions without actually trying to escape them was a whole beast in itself. And I feel like there's a lot of black people around me that probably feel the same way. And also another random thought, but do grocery stores feel like extremely emotionally weird at night? What? Anyways, because for many black people, emotional suppression feels so normalized that emotional safety feels distant and foreign. And that's why I feel like mental health around black people is so important. And honestly, I am so excited to see how therapy is going to shape me and mold me over the next couple of years. Because healing is probably less about becoming a whole, completely different person. And it's more about becoming yourself naturally without having survival mode take over 24/7. Any of this video feels familiar, or if just you have something to say, please comment down below because I really do want to respond to your comments and read them. Because seriously, I think a lot of black people can relate to this conversation more than society realizes, especially the overthinking, the overexhaustion. Oh my day. And if you want more conversations regarding psychology, life, music, all of the above, consider subscribing down below. I think a lot of people are emotionally exhausted and overwhelmed, especially right now. And I think people do a really good job hiding it. Healing matters. Emotional honesty matters. And I think a lot of black people are emotionally exhausted in ways that has been going on for way, way, way too long. Maybe, just maybe, true healing can begin when finally somebody says, we already know how to survive, now we need to learn how to emotionally live. Thank you.